Have you ever felt like you're just not back in the saddle after a break? As English learners, we often struggle with understanding common idioms like this one. But don't worry, today we're going to unlock the meaning and usage of the phrase back in the saddle. Let me share a funny story about a time someone misunderstood this idiom. My friend Sarah had just returned from a long vacation. When I asked her how it felt to be back in the saddle, she thought I was asking if she had been horseback riding. So, what does back in the saddle actually mean? It's an idiom that refers to resuming an activity or returning to a previous role or routine after a break or absence. The saddle part comes from the idea of getting back on a horse after some time away. Let me show you how to use back in the saddle correctly. After taking a week off, Sarah was excited to be back in the saddle at her job. She felt energized and ready to dive back into her regular tasks and responsibilities. Here are some example sentences using back in the saddle. After her maternity leave, the new mom was happy to be back in the saddle at work. The actor was excited to be back in the saddle, filming his latest movie after a long break. It took me a few days to feel back in the saddle after my vacation, but now I'm fully re-energized. The team was back in the saddle, ready to tackle their next big project. She's been back in the saddle for a week now, and it feels great to be in her regular routine again. The small business owner was thrilled to be back in the saddle after the pandemic shutdown. To help you remember the meaning of back in the saddle, think of a cowboy or cowgirl getting back on their horse after some time away. This visual image can serve as a useful memory aid. The idiom back in the saddle has an interesting history. It originated in the late 19th century, likely from the world of horse riding and ranching. The phrase reflects the importance of being able to quickly resume one's duties or responsibilities. Just as a cowboy needs to be able to get back on a horse without hesitation. Some similar idioms to back in the saddle include hit the ground running, get back on the horse, dive right back in. These all convey the idea of quickly resuming an activity or routine after a break. On the other hand, an opposite idiom would be out of the loop, which suggests being disconnected or behind. I'm excited to be back in the saddle and teaching you all about this useful idiom. Without using the idiom, I could say, I'm thrilled to be resuming my role as your English language instructor after a break. Let me share a real-life story about how back in the saddle was used effectively. My colleague, Sarah, had just returned from maternity leave. When she walked into the office, she confidently declared, "I'm so glad to be back in the saddle." Her colleagues immediately understood that she was ready to dive back into her regular work duties. With energy and enthusiasm. Now, let's address some common mistakes and how to avoid them when using back in the saddle. Grammatical mistake, saying I'm back in the saddles instead of I'm back in the saddle. The idiom is singular, not plural. Meaning mistake, thinking back in the saddle means literally riding a horse, like my friend Sarah. The idiom refers to resuming any activity or routine, not just horseback riding. Contextual mistake, misunderstanding back in the saddle as only relating to horseback riding. The idiom is actually suited for returning to any regular job, hobby, or responsibility after a break. Let's test your understanding of back in the saddle with a quick quiz. 1. What does the idiom back in the saddle mean? A. Literally getting back on a horse. B. Resuming an activity or routine after a break. C. Feeling energized and ready to work. Correct answer, B. 2. Which of these is a synonym for back in the saddle? A. Out of the loop. B. Hit the ground running. C. Take a break. Correct answer, B. 3. Which of these is an antonym for back in the saddle? A. Dive right back in. B. Get back on the horse. C. Feeling disconnected. Correct answer, C. In summary, back in the saddle is a useful idiom that refers to resuming an activity or routine after a break or absence. Understanding and properly using this idiom can help you communicate more effectively in English. Now it's your turn. Share a sentence using back in the saddle in the comments below. I'm excited to see how you put this idiom into practice.